Hi friends, today we're going to be unnecessarily hostile towards Voltron decks. I have no particular reason for this. I just think it's funny to spend a lot of effort to hate out one very specific niche strategy. Is there anything more glorious than using Tivadar of Thorn to destroy a goblin? I think not. Now, let me be honest. I don't even believe Voltron is all that good. It's a niche strategy that outside of a few corner cases is ultimately not all that effective. But it being mid makes it even funnier to hit it with specific counterplay. And so, today, I'm going to tell you how to drive Voltron players into a deep pit of despair. Some baseline stuff first. Voltron is a strategy that revolves around creating a single enormous creature by attaching auras, enchantments, counters and other buffs to it. Usually this creature is the deck's commander, and that's the assumption I'll be working with. On their journey, Voltron decks tend to prioritize protection from cards like Swiftfoot Boots or the Swords of X and Y cycle before going into power. Of course, the best and easiest way of dealing with a Voltron deck is to just kill the Voltron target anytime it shows up. But sometimes you just don't find your removal in time, and then once you have your beast within, hitting the Voltron creature with it is just not possible anymore. So, for most of my suggestions today, I will assume that we can't target the Voltron creature. However, if you still can, then Tower of the Magistrate is a hilarious way of ruining an equipment Voltron player's day. It's a land that taps for colorless, but for 1 mana, and by tapping it, you may instead give a creature protection from artifacts until end of turn. We can use this on our opponent's creatures, which is funny because not only does it prevent the attaching of equipments, but it also unequips any that had already been attached. And since this effect lasts until end of turn, we can activate it in their upkeep to fully prevent the Voltron player from ever equipping anything to their creature of choice. Mace of Ith and Spires of Araska can similarly prevent a player from ever dealing combat damage with their commander by just removing the commander from combat, denying valuable combat damage triggers. And should your opponent eventually manage to stick hexproof, then Glaring Spotlight is a hilarious way of dealing with it. I love super specific cards like this. There's nothing funnier than hitting opponents with bizarrely niche counterplay. Recently, a friend of mine used Yorion the Sky Nomad to blink out his board. But then he had the return trigger stifled by a nimble obstructionist getting cycled, leaving his commander permanently exiled with no way of returning it. Big shit, I tell you, that was so funny. Alright, from now on we assume we can't target the Voltron creature anymore. A great way of dealing with it then is to force our opponents to sacrifice it with Edicts. However, the effectiveness of these can vary depending on how many creatures our opponent plays. Some Voltron decks only have 1, but others aren't as focused and still play some defensive or value creatures. Our goal is to ruin the Voltron player's day, so we need to make sure we are specifically hitting the Voltron creature with our Edict. Luckily, there are a variety of Edicts available that actually come with some indirect targeting. My preferred option are ones that specifically hit the highest power creature our opponents control. Crackling Doom, Giggs's Command, and Consumed by Greed are nearly unavoidable precision strikes against decks that rely on only a single powerful creature. But we don't necessarily have to be precise. Mass edicts like Blasphemous Edict will also do the trick. Another great way of playing around hexproof is Sadistic Shell Game, a 5-mana sorcery that has each player choose a creature you don't control, and then destroys all of those creatures. Since this process doesn't target, it can bypass hexproof and shroud. Oh, and also, if you've enjoyed the video so far, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you very much. There are a variety of cards that restrict how our opponents can attack. For example, Disrupt Decorum or Taunt from the Rampart goad creatures, making sure that we are safe from getting one-shot for at least 1 turn. However, gold only helps us while there are other targets available. Once we're down to a 1 vs 1, it doesn't do anything. But that's where Ruined Halo comes in. Ruined Halo is a 2-mana enchantment that when it enters has us name a card and then gives us protection from that card. If we name a player's commander, then it can't deal damage to us anymore, even if it does attack. Thank you very much to a viewer for this suggestion. A similar but still different solution is Promise of Loyalty. Promise of Loyalty is a 5-mana sorcery that has each player pick a creature to put a vow counter on, and then sacrifice the rest. Creatures with vow counters then may not attack us for the rest of the game. Unlike goading, this will continue to be useful even after our other opponents were knocked out, and it comes attached to a helpful sweeper. Board vibes in general tend to be quite good at dealing with Voltron. Sunfall and Farewell are the obvious choices as they ignore nearly all defensive options, even indestructibility, but I actually don't like them for our purposes here because they are not specific enough. That's why I would like to introduce you to End Hostilities, a 5-mana sweeper that destroys all creatures and all permanents attached to creatures. Say goodbye to all of your auras and equipments. Even if your creature survives, you're starting over. Another white sweeper that's just unnecessarily mean is Out of Time. Out of Time is a 3-mana enchantment that when it enters the battlefield, phases out all creatures until it leaves the battlefield. It also places as many time counters on itself as it phased out creatures, and it has Vanishing, meaning it loses a time counter each turn and sacrifices itself when the last is gone. More often than not, this last part is flavor text, as Out of Time enters with like 10 time counters, ensuring it sticks around for the rest of the game, if not dealt with in some other way. On top of that, phasing is absolutely devastating in Commander, because it removes creatures in a way that prevents commanders from going into the command zone. Phasing out isn't a zone change, meaning commanders have to go along with it just like any other creature, and Out of Time neither targets nor destroys, so none of the usual protection helps. The only thing our opponents can do is kill the enchantment itself, but if they don't have any removal for that available, then they might just find themselves in a bit of a pickle. I have played Out of Time on a board before, which resulted in my opponents killing their own commanders so that they don't phase out. The funniest part about all of this is that they can't even move their equipments to a new creature, because the equipment phases out too. Oh man, don't use this card. It's so mean. For most players, just getting rid of their commander is much more preferable. And so, allow me to introduce to you Leadership Vacuum, a card that according to EDHREC is in 0% of blue decks. Every time I've played Leadership Vacuum, it's resulted in my opponents double and triple checking the card to make sure that it really does what I said it does. It's a 3-mana blue instant that says, target player returns each commander they control from the battlefield to the command zone, and it lets you draw a card. This, yet again, bypasses any kind of creature protection, because it doesn't target the creature at all, it targets the player. It also doesn't care about indestructible, protection, or anything else they might have, as it doesn't destroy or even exile the creature. It just sends it straight to the command zone, straight to jail. Leadership Vacuum is actually just an incredibly powerful card. It's instant speed, it replaces itself, it can be used on yourself in response to Out of Time. It's also very good against partner commanders, because it hits all commanders a player controls, meaning we can force them to send both back to the command zone. This card may seem very niche, but I actually stopped playing with it because it's incredibly effective and just so unnecessarily rude. But hey, since we are being rude, for only 200 euros, you too can play Force Field, an ancient 3-mana artifact that for 1 mana lets you choose an unblocked creature and reduce all damage it would deal to 1. Just like with many cards on this list, WotC had a bit of an aneurysm when creating and errataing it, and decided that for some reason it doesn't target, meaning hexproof or protection just does nothing. And while Force Field doesn't prevent your opponent from getting value out of their combat damage triggers, it's sure going to take them a while to actually kill you, 1 damage at a time. But if this card is too expensive for you, which I mean, come on, it's only 200 bucks, then a more reasonable alternative is Divine Presence, a 3 mana enchantment that reduces all damage to 3. Both these effects will slow down Voltron to a point of being just incapable of ever getting a kill. And now that we have successfully tortured a significant portion of the player base into never touching the game again, let's finish the match ourselves by using non-targeted stealing effects like Reigns of Power to take control of our opponent's Voltron commander and use it to put them out of their misery. Please don't take this video all that seriously. I'm not advocating that you center your deck specifically around hating out Voltron. Instead, this is supposed to just be a showcase of cards that you might want to include if you encounter Voltron frequently and you struggle with going up against it. Leadership Vacuum in particular is a huge standout that's incredibly effective. The whole framing of this video was just because I think it's funny. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. I did a lot of this research because I was preparing for a budget tournament and one of the players I assumed was gonna bring Light Paws and, you know, kind of wanted to have ways of dealing with Light Paws. So I actually always bring Leadership Vacuum to budget tournaments unless I'm playing some weird toxic mono green combo deck. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if there are other strategies that you would like me to make a dedicated video about on how we can deal with them. Now, before we move on, before we're done today, I want to really quickly tell you about something, and that is I'm working on a board game. So I've already talked about this in some other places on my stream and whatnot, but I've been developing a board game over the past couple of months. It's not my first board game, it's my second board game, so I'm very excited about it. It is an auto battler. I don't know how familiar you guys are with auto battlers, but it's an auto battler. And what I'm currently using is I'm using magic cards as kind of like the cards for it, although I just ordered a proper print run of a proper prototype. And I'm mostly letting you know ahead of time because I'm excited for it and I want to show it off at some point in the future. So now you know that that's coming. I'm not entirely sure what the plan is with the board game. Maybe we publish it ourselves. Maybe we make a Kickstarter. Maybe we do something like that. Or maybe I actually find a publisher. I mean, I have some experience with that now. So we'll see if I can actually get this properly published. But I am very excited about this game that I've been working on. It's a lot of fun. It's very cool. And plays really nicely. It reminds a lot of Commander, to be honest. It's just 4 people at a table playing cards together in a way that is just interactive, but also mostly you just hang out. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you soon.